have social anxiety, and I've had social anxiety for as long as I can remember. Now, for those of you who can relate to that, I want to ask you this. How do you explain to the people in your life what social anxiety is? For me, it's always been this feeling of not being good enough. Feeling like I'm being constantly judged by everyone in every room I walk into. The feeling that every laugh I hear, every stare I get, every smirk I see, that it's about me. I'm always making it about me. That's how I would describe social anxiety. It's that fear of judgment. Now, you can imagine, especially if you're someone who has social anxiety, that making friends is not easy. It's never been easy for me. So in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about how I overcame that, how I was able to make friends as someone who has social anxiety. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to quickly welcome those of you who are new. My name is Bridget. On this channel, you'll find me talk a lot about introverts, a lot about social anxiety and general anxiety. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go check out some of my other videos. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful or useful. Comment below what you'd like to see more from me, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Making friends with that mindset that I had, that I was always being judged, that I was always being looked at and, just not good enough for the people around me. Making friends with that mindset was going to be impossible. The way I really started to make friends, I remember the first friend I ever had. It was that moment where I let my guard down, where I was able to be vulnerable. I let that person in. And luckily, that person was a lot like me. I connected with them. I felt like I could confide in them. And that person helped me introduce myself to other people and other scenarios. So I got extremely comfortable with that person and therefore comfortable with my environment. But life is not always going to be that easy, especially as you get older and the challenges get tougher and it becomes more challenging to start seeking out all of those opportunities. One of the things I found to be really helpful in this process was trying to figure out which situations made me the most socially anxious. So some of those things were things like making phone calls, asking questions in school or work, getting people's contact information, asking them to hang out sometime, making small talk with people. Those were the things that were really fearful for me. And it helps to make a list, ranking those fearful situations from least fearful to most fearful, and starting to tackle those fears one by one, starting with the small thing. So for me on that list, it was making phone calls. And that's a really great way to start out because, there's a barrier, right? It's just your voice and talking to the other person. Most likely, if it's someone you don't know, you'll probably never see them. You might not talk to them again. And that's a great way to start making that small talk. So that's what I started out with. And then it progressively got to doing that in person, right? Making small talk with the cashier, actually talking to the woman who was doing my hair, saying hi to someone on the street, saying hi to someone in a coffee shop, talking to the barista, things like that, like small things that were going to help me and show me that proof and give me that confidence so that I could do it in, the more fearful situations, like having small talk with someone who maybe I knew and saw every day, asking for their contact information, asking them to hang out sometime. It was the small things that led me and helped me get to the larger things. The second thing I found to be really critical actually was changing my self-talk or challenging my self-talk. It gets really easy as someone who has social anxiety to constantly be berating ourselves, talking down upon ourselves. I had this thought constantly that I wasn't good enough, that people were judging me, people were looking at me. And the more I was in my head and the more I fed myself that self-talk, the worse it got. So I just got stuck in this negative feedback loop. The more I talked down about myself, the less likely I was to engage with other people. And the less likely I was to engage with other people made me in my head feel even worse about myself. And so challenging that negative self-talk to even something that's neutral. Because just trying to feed yourself positive self-talk is not going to be helpful, especially if you're in such a negative loop. So instead of saying, I'm a loser, everyone hates me, no one wants to talk to me, everyone's judging me, saying, maybe I'm not in the right crowd right now. Right? Not everyone is always looking at you. Not everyone is always thinking about you. Maybe they're doing something else. Maybe the laugh you heard was them talking about something else. I used to constantly think that people, when I would see them, that they were talking about me or they were laughing about me. And that's what always made social scenarios or even like being out in public really difficult for me. And so the more I would tell myself that it's not about you, it's not about you, it's not about you, the easier it was to just simply exist and be myself without constantly hearing those negative voices in my head. The next thing I want to talk about is very similar to that. along with challenging that self-talk, it's very helpful in these social situations to focus on other people. Focus on anything in your physical surroundings that will take you out of the craziness that's in your mind right now, right? Get out of your head and into your surroundings, observing what's happening around you. And when you're engaging with a person, focusing on them, listening to them, what are they saying? A lot of the times we get so in our head when we're having a conversation with somebody. What are we gonna say next? Is this person judging me? Do they think I sound weird? Those are the things that are constantly running through my mind, or at least they used to. And so when I focused all of my attention onto what that person was saying, actually listening to them, having that conversation became easier. The flow was easier because I was actually responding to what they were saying, because I was listening. I wasn't getting caught up in how I sounded, or what I was gonna say next, or where the conversation was gonna go, or if this person was gonna talk to me ever again. I was just enjoying the moment. So focusing our attention elsewhere really helps get out of our head. Another thing that became very helpful for me, especially as conversations, not that they became more difficult, but just as my life progressed, I was in, I guess, harder conversations, right? When it came to talking to professors, talking to my coworkers, talking to my boss, talking to people at a networking event, right? These really fearful situations. And I found it really helpful to practice not only what I was going to say, but how I was going to act in these social situations. So giving myself that quick pep talk, hyping myself up, having go-to conversation starters when I was going to be at this particular event. So the conversation starters will vary depending on where you are, at a networking event, at a party, at work, but having go-to phrases when you introduce yourself to somebody, having a list of things that you can talk about with somebody, things that are of interest to you, just small things to help ease that small talk, because at sometimes we gotta have it. That's how we find people, right? Small talk is unfortunately that starting point before getting into deeper conversations with people. And I still do this, by the way. I still hype myself up before going to an event or meeting someone that I've never met before. I still run through the script in my head. I still do all of these things. I no longer get anxiety about the mundane things, right? Like I no longer get anxiety about phone calls or, talking to my hairdresser. I've gone to the same one for like 2 years and we have great conversations now. Just talking to the random people at the coffee shop or the dry cleaners or the grocery store or the woman you saw in the parking lot. Those conversations, they don't scare me anymore. And even going to meet new people doesn't really scare me anymore. But I built that up, right? I've done these things for years and years. Because like I've said, I've struggled with it my whole life. It's got to get better at some point. The last thing I want to mention is that, again, this takes time. It takes practice and it takes work on your part. A lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is going to be really scary in the beginning. But the more you take time to practice those skills, doing those small, fearful things, the better you will get, the more you develop your social skills. This is like anything in life. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes work. You can't expect to be great off the bat. We're all going to mess up sometimes. We're all going to look like an idiot sometimes. I've had my fair share. And give yourself credit for how far you've come, how many milestones you've crossed. Every day is going to bring new challenges, and you will be able to show yourself that you can do it. It is possible. And it doesn't have to be as scary as you're making it up to be in your head. And that is the biggest thing that I've learned over the years. I can't believe how much fear I instilled in myself and how much doubt and judgment I put upon myself for no reason. You build up these scary scenarios in your head, and once you actually do them, you realize that it's not so bad. And of course, the times where you do look like an idiot or where you do mess up, it hurts, it stings a little bit. But then when you do it again and you show yourself that, wow, that wasn't that hard. Wow, I actually met someone great. When you show yourself that proof that you can do it, it's like, wow, I can't believe I haven't done this years ago. I can't believe I wasted so much time and energy thinking that I was something that I wasn't. And so rewatch this video again and again and again and come back to it when you need it. And use these tools to help you next time you go into that conversation. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys found it helpful and useful as always, and I will see you next time.